Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, a weekly program at MMA Junkie where we take a quick spin through all the biggest topics in mixed martial arts. And gentlemen, this past weekend, of course, was all about UFC 244. The BMF title was on the line. We got a great card overall. We had a great fight. It just didn't end the way we wanted. A cut determined the BMF champion. So, George, I want to ask you, right away, Nate Diaz calls for a rematch. Masvidal in the cage said we will do it again. Dana White says he's not really down for it. Given the state of the welterweight division, what's happening? Do we need to do this rematch right now or not?
No, and I'll tell you why. Because this was something special outside of the norm, and I feel like it was settled. Masvidal did work. He got to the point where a doctor had to be summoned and to assess the injury. He felt like it was too much. Look, I love me some Nate Diaz, and if I see it down the road, okay. Immediate rematch, I don't need to see that. I feel like Masvidal has put in some work, and he's actually a title contender. He should be next for the winner of Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman. And I think there's storylines there. One, just him earning a shot versus Usman. Or if it falls back on Covington beating Usman, think about that one. That one's bad, got bad blood written over it. Now, again, I wouldn't mind seeing it down the road, but not immediate.
All right, Goze, how about you? There's some interesting points there. Like George said, especially if Colby Covington wins. But I don't know, can we wait that long? What do you think? Do we need to do this rematch or not?
I think the casual fan wants to see it right now, but this is a division where things actually make sense. Let's keep it down that road. You have the main event. It's ready to go. Give a guy like Jorge Masvidal his due. He's been waiting this long. And even then, even if we decided to do it today, the main reason that cut opened was he didn't let it heal in the first place. So how long is it going to take for that to heal? We're going to have Masvidal on the shelf. It really doesn't make any sense. Masvidal's a hot commodity right now. Let's keep him fresh and let's get him the title shot.
Is he really the number one contender, or what we're talking about is if Colby Covington wins, we want to see that grudge match for the title? Is Masvidal the number one contender right now? If Usman wins, is that the fight to make?
I think so, because Dana did a good job of explaining a little bit of stuff behind the scenes, pulling the curtain. And what he said was basically, look, some guys are fast-tracked. He was using it when he was referring to Corey Anderson. He's just going to have a little bit of a longer road. But when you're popping, you get the shorter road. And right now, Jorge's popping. Look, I know Leon Edwards has a streak. I know Ponzinibbio has a streak. I know Woodley had 4 title defenses. He wants to get back into it. But right now, it seems like Jorge's the man.
How disgusted would Leon Edwards be if Jorge Masvidal gets a title shot? Doesn't he deserve something as well?
Look, the way I look at it, guys, is it's like Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor. You can reheat that whenever you want. So let's just keep things in order now, and one day we'll get to that, because you're right. There has to be a victor in that. To me, the doctor kind of decided who the baddest guy was that night. I want to see the fighters decide it.
I think that's a good point. You hit the nail on the head right there with that Conor McGregor reference, right? Like, we know at some point they're going to have a trilogy fight down the line. It's going to be big no matter when it happens. And I think this would be big as well. And I think you touched on it. Get a little bit of time. Heal that cut up a little bit. He said it right away. Anytime you sneeze on him, it breaks up a little bit. That surgery that his brother had that kind of got rid of the scar tissue, that might be a great thing for him as well. And Nate, man, he's such a star. If he takes 2 years off, 3. I hope he doesn't take that long off, man. Maybe the skills wouldn't be there. But I think there's time. I don't think there's any rush to do this right now. I think Nate definitely deserves it. I just don't feel like we have to get to it right away. So, all right, let's talk about the event as a whole, because I was up there in New York, and I got to say, the BMF title, sure, it was completely made up, a little bit weird. I think some people had mixed feelings on that. But I got to say, number one, the belt looked pretty dang cool. And the event felt big. Trump was in the building, say what you will about him, but having the president of the United States in the building was pretty cool. The Rock, yes, I understand he's not exactly a mixed martial artist, but he is a huge star. It was so cool. So the event felt big. So what I want to ask you guys is, this was not the way the UFC typically markets. This was something different. But I've seen some people, even on our staff, say that they jumped the shark. Do you think they jumped the shark, or should the UFC be a little bit more receptive to doing new ideas to make events happen?
I think a lot of people love this type of stuff. When it first came out, I thought it was kind of corny, but as the week went on, it was starting to be cool. You see Trump involved, you see The Rock involved. I thought it was pretty awesome when it was the night of. But here's the thing, man. How far do we take it? I think every once in a while, yeah, let's do it. When we talk about pride, we talk about the stage. A lot of time we're talking about the stage, the intro. We don't even talk about the fights. There is something to that. You just have to take your time when you're going to do it. But this fight, it was a good fight, bordering on great. It was really one-sided. It was all the drama that came with the BMF title that made us so involved in it. So I think they did their job.
George, I asked Dana about this as well because, it's only a couple weeks after Israel Adesanya had that, dancing walk-in or whatever, which was very atypical of UFC production as well. And so I asked him, I said, listen, is this a new era? I mean, are you guys getting a little more creative, a little bit more flexible? And he said, absolutely not. We're just going to keep doing what we're doing. So you tell me, I mean, this event did feel big. Should maybe the UFC step back and say, wait a minute, maybe we should be a little bit more open to doing things differently?
I think they should play it by ear, and I don't want to see it all the time. And the fact that Adesanya and, that card and this, which also was the historic 500 card that the UFC's ever done, they just happen to be next to each other. I don't think we should wait a few years to do it, but maybe like once a year there should be some sort of a card out there that just feels special for whatever reason. Look, there was no title at stake. There was a belt. But the UFC pulled off a great event with having no titles. There doesn't have to be a title. If you stack the card with talent, the fans will come. They will give an F about it. You know what I mean? We had 17 ranked fighters on this fight card.
Wow.
And that's why it was so compelling. Every matchup, man. Starting from the early prelims to the prelims, all the way to the main event.
I hesitated a little bit when it was first announced. Like you guys said, I thought it felt a little bit cheesy to create it. But once it happened, I mean, we knew the matchup was good. You said the talent was there. But I will say it was cool inside Madison Square Garden when, the lights go down. All of a sudden, The Rock's entrance music comes out. He's got the belt on his shoulder, and he's carrying it all the way to the cage. So not only did he wrap it around the waist, but he's kind of setting up the main event. It felt cool to me. It felt special. And I don't want him creating 100 titles. I don't know what else you would do. I don't want to create belt after belt after belt. But in the end, it didn't feel cheesy. It felt big to me.
No, and when you think about it, it actually helped us get a win over boxing. Boxing waited for this to happen. They made it become a big deal. I'd like to see him play around with it in the future. Hey, hell, if you get a Strikeforce guy and a WEC guy, let him wear the gloves. Let it go a little old school. Things like that.
I like that. See, little tweaks like that. And man, we wish we had time to go over the whole MMA versus boxing. What a crazy scene that was. The fact that they were
90
playing
minutes
it.
they waited.
90 minutes they waited, and they showed the fights right here down the street at the MGM Grand where the boxing match was going on. That is absolutely crazy, man. That's a win for MMA, I think
it sure
was.
To say.
All right, well, listen, it wasn't just a main event. As you said, 17 ranked fighters on the card. I mean, there were some big fights here. Corey Anderson, man, what a performance he had. Shocking the world, I think, and not just shocking the world in the fact that he beat Johnny Walker. I mean, I think some people thought it was competitive, but the fact of the way he did it. And afterwards, he talked trash, man. He did it in the cage. He did it in the back. Pretty atypical of what we think of Corey Anderson, even coming out and saying, hey, man, give me a title shot or let me go. Dana said slow your roll a little bit on that. But what do you think, George? I mean, has this man done what it takes to be a number one contender?
He has. The only problem, there's a guy named Dominic Reyes who's 6-0 in the UFC and also undefeated. I think overall 11-0, 13-0, whatever it is. It's very impressive, and so he's behind him. Now, Anderson had a great performance over a fighter that was, I hate to use the same word again, popping. Everybody was actually looking towards Walker and Jones. Now, a little bit helps that Jones actually has been kind of like, brushing aside the contenders and just looking for something that'll just spark, and get him excited about a matchup. I think that was Walker, and so Anderson wins. Big overhand right. He didn't even have to use the wrestling. Honestly, he got it done with the hands. Great job. But the chip on the shoulder, I think he should have lost it right then and there and just left it at demanding the title shot. Give me the title shot. That's it. We don't need this whole or cut me thing, man. You already made your statement.
Goze, what do you think? Because it seems like I almost felt bad that Corey Anderson came out and apologized for his actions after. In fact, I even went to Instagram and said, I don't think he needs to. I mean, seeing a guy do that, isn't this what we were saying? We're like, hey, Corey's a fantastic fighter, but he just doesn't really get me excited. Isn't doing that stuff kind of what it takes to be exciting?
Yeah, I felt like Release Me was a little bit too far. He probably shouldn't have gone there, but once he did, just ride with it. Because the one thing that we talk about with John Jones is the guy needs a dance partner, okay? He needs someone with a little fire, kind of like a Daniel Cormier that brought it out of him because he's so dominant that sometimes people just don't want to tune in because they think he's just going to run away with it. Corey Anderson needs to develop a little bit of that gangster
side.
Did
he even mention Jones, by the way?
He didn't even say it. And the thing with Johnny Walker was, he's funny, he's moving around, he's clowning. That makes for a good fight. You see how soon Israel Adesanya, how he popped because of things like that. So when Corey kind of took it back with the apology, it kind of brought him back down a little bit. It was strange.
I agree, especially it's funny too because I mean you're right. Everybody was on the Johnny Walker hype train, right? But Corey Anderson derailed it, and I think he should get a little bit of that love. But it's funny because we're pointing to Dominic Reyes. It's not exactly like Dominic Reyes is the most boisterous, outspoken
Correct.
person ever. I mean, I think he's very much in that kind of calm, reserved kind of vein as well. So, George, if it was up to you, we're giving you the fight contracts. We're assuming that John Jones will take whoever you put on the table. Who is the rightful number one contender? Did Corey Anderson do it? Did Corey Anderson do enough?
Putting me on the spot, but that's what I love. Look, Reyes has the lead because he's undefeated. No one's tripped him up. Anderson's been tripped up, and since then he's become a straight-up G, just putting fools down. I get that, but I guess I'm more of a guy that just turns to other sports and sees how that works out. You know, basically like a playoffs, like a playoff run. And Reyes is yet to be tripped up, so I'd have to lean that way. Now, what sells better? If you're asking me that, I think maybe Anderson, he may have stolen the show.
But you know what? I think at the end of the day, you can do both. I mean, right, you can go Dominic Reyes next and just say, Corey Anderson, hang tight, man. You are the number one contender. Right. You guys are both number one contenders. He just happened to fight a little bit before you. All right, Johnny Walker. Let's talk about that Johnny Walker hype train, right? I mean, this guy, talking about Israel Adesanya coming in dancing. You know, Johnny Walker came in dancing, doing the New York. He was doing what he does. He's a showman. He's a personality. But he got beat, and he got beat bad. Is this the end of Johnny Walker? Did the hype train get completely derailed? Or, you know, could this be good? A chance to rebuild, a chance to learn?
You know, I think it's a good thing for him in the lot. Like at this level, it's very, very hard to be clowning around, making a show. But it does help. It helps move up the level of your profile. Had Anderson lost, I think it would have set him back a lot, okay? But a guy like Johnny Walker that's so fun to watch, I feel like all it takes is another win or two, and he's right back in the mix, especially when you have a dominant champ. You need guys to fight him.
What I wonder is, I mean, I think the public is going to right away say you can't clown anymore. You can't showboat. You can't. As I think even Dana said it. You know, it's dangerous to play around at this level. George, if you were advising him, I mean, what would you say? Because that's what made Johnny Walker. That's why he shot to the top.
Right.
That's why he was popping, like you said, right? So would your advice be, hey, get rid of all that? You can't do this at that level? Or is it something that, you know, hey, everybody gets caught?
You can get caught with even having your hands up, you know what I mean? I would say just be yourself, because at the end of the day, I think you have to have some fun, and I'll get to that when we get to the Masvidal talk. But when you're out there stress-free, having fun, I just think you become an even more dangerous fighter. So keep doing what you're doing. The one thing that didn't get answered is, what's Johnny Walker like if you put him on his back? We thought Anderson might do that, and never even got to that. So we've yet to see that part of his game evolve. But how destructive has he been before even getting to Anderson? That's what made us all fall in love with him, and I think he needs to stick with that recipe.
So what do you do on the way back? I mean, is this guy still deserving of being in top fights? I mean, this was, yes, it was on the prelims, but I think it was one of those featured prelims fights that they knew, you know, had a lot of meaning, was probably going to help sell some pay-per-views, and it probably did. I mean, it was still exciting. So if you're rebuilding this guy's career, if you're managing him, do you still try to push him to, hey, let's get you another top 10, another top 5 guy? Or do you say, okay, let's slow back down a little bit. We got some developing to do.
I think first and foremost, it's all about the break. Give the guy time to rest, get him back. But I really think he's proven that he can hang with people at the top. He just made a mistake. Corey Anderson pointed it out. He said exactly the punch that he saw in training. That's the one that won him the fight. So I would tell Johnny Walker, the personality's there. You've done a great job there. Concentrate on the fighter, get that back. But I think he does deserve high-profile fights from here on out.
I think so, too. I mean, especially, I always say it's kind of weird, right? But, like, if you're going to lose, I think sometimes it's better to lose quick like that versus, with dominate. Like, had we seen, you know, Corey Anderson absolutely dominate Johnny Walker over the course of 15 minutes, then maybe we get a little bit less excited. You know, I always go back to, like, you know, Jose Aldo and Conor McGregor. I mean, you know, I know that derailed Jose Aldo's career in a lot of ways, but to me, I don't feel like Conor dominated him. You know, we just saw a quick win. Had it been a 25-minute victory, that's why I think a lot of people did want to see the rematch, because they thought, well, I mean, I saw a result, but I didn't necessarily see somebody get dominated. And I think in some ways, as weird as it sounds to say it was good for Johnny Walker, I think it was good that this fight ended quickly. Had he been absolutely dominated for 15 minutes, held down, held on his back, shown that he's completely ineffective from there, then we'd say, oh, come on, man, this guy's not the real deal. But instead, all we saw is, you know, a quick result and a guy get caught, and that happens at the highest level of mixed martial arts.
And he didn't get flatlined.
That's right, he didn't get flatlined. All right, other performances as well. You said him in this card was deep. Kevin Lee, Wonder Boy, Darren Till, all these guys got big wins and much needed wins for all of them. I mean, they were in a bad spot. So out of those guys, let me know, the Motown Phenom, Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy, Darren Till, the Gorilla, who impressed you most, George?
Yeah, and let me say that out of those fights, and basically the ones that we've covered, let's call it a 6-fight main card, because Anderson Walker was pretty special. 4 underdogs won. So, again, great matchmaking. That's why this fight card was so compelling. But Oh, man, look, Till, nice splash into the middleweight division. We'll talk a little bit more about that maybe on another show when we talk rankings. But Kevin Lee, that's how you come back. And how about the fact he had a nice walk off his persona? A lot of guys run into cages. A lot of guys jump onto the cage. A lot of guys backflip off the cage. And he was walking around kind of like, been there, done that. Wasn't saying anything. He played it so cool. He was oozing cool, you know what I mean? And that actually is going to give a running to Jorge Masvidal over Ben Askren, that running knee for KO of the year. Now, that other one may be tough for fans to not click that when it's time to vote, but I'm telling you, this was savage, man. It was brutal. I was concerned for Gregor Gillespie. On the way down, man, I mean, it looked bad.
He was out for a while. It was a bit of a scary moment. Luckily, recovered pretty quickly. Goes out of those trio. What do you think? Was it Lee that impressed you most, or what was the biggest win?
I'm kind of with George on this one. Kevin Lee, I mean, how do you not say that wasn't one of the most devastating knockouts you've ever seen? It's one of those where you look at it and you automatically think, is that guy okay, the way he fell down? What I'd like Kevin Lee to do is take a page out of George Masvidal's book. It's almost like the resurrection for Kevin Lee as well, right? Hey, he switched camps, and you could automatically see it. His stance was different. He used his jab more. It was a good performance for him. He won over the crowd with some of the things he said. It seems like he's maturing a little bit. He's taken off some of that pressure of trying to build that character of Kevin Lee. I think it's really helped him. I really do. And I want to see him to flourish in that position. But Stephen Thompson as well, for years we've all been saying, if he just had a little bit more of an output, this guy would be dangerous, and he did that. And it's good to see fighters react, and those two fighters really reacted.
Yeah, it's interesting because, as you said, I think Kevin Lee got too caught up in being Kevin Lee for a while instead of just being a fighter, and I think that did affect him. This was impressive. I guess, it's depending on what you ask, right? What was the most impressive? Yeah, it probably was Kevin Lee. What was the most needed? Maybe Wonder Boy, maybe Till. I mean, those guys, I think Kevin Lee's a young guy, right, with a lot of future at him. I think with Wonder Boy and Darren Till, we wondered,
so then it'd be Wonder Boy because of the age, Yeah. He's upper mid-30s, and he definitely needed that win. I mean, he got iced by Pettis. He lost to Till. All those guys, I think, were working off 2-fight losses or just bad runs. They really, really needed it. But, yeah, in that regard, like, who's shorter on time? Because Father Time's undefeated, I guess Wonder Boy is letting everybody know, hey, I'm still a title contender. I'm not immediate. Remember, there's the Ponzis, the Edwards, the Masvidals that we discussed earlier, the Woodleys, but he's right there.
Definitely hard to take away from anybody. That was a great card with a lot of great performances. It's UFC 244, even though it didn't end the way we wanted it to in the main event, man. It was a lot of fun. And listen, it's another busy weekend this weekend as well. We've got the UFC, Bellator, One Championship, Cage Warriors, KSW, all in action. We'll talk about it all next week on Spinning Back Clique.